Everybody, and welcome to Stream Queens Con Part 2. My name is Lennon Bradshaw. Last year, I was a person hoping to be one of the first black drag artists here on Twitch, and boom, voila, magic. We are the first black drag partner on Twitch. We are here to celebrate Stream Queens Con, and we are on a panel today talking about the stigma that we need to stop. And it is World AIDS Day as well. We are raising money for AMFAR, which is an amazing organization. If you look at the bottom right below me, we've raised $500 out of $1,000 already. So thank you for that. I have brought some really amazing people here to talk about HIV and AIDS and World AIDS Day and the education that we want to share with you in our lives and maybe our experiences. So going around, I'm going to introduce my amazing panelists because we are already and amazing. Kylie, we'll start with you. Who are you?
My name is Kylie Gabor. I'm a Latinx drag queen here on Twitch. I stream Apex Legends primarily. Yeah, that's me.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, welcome, welcome, welcome.
I want pronouns or any.
Any pronouns? Thank you for letting
Yes.
us know. Geisha Star, the legend, the icon from Seattle. How are you doing today? Thank you for doing this panel.
Thank you for inviting me. Hi, everyone. My name is Geisha Star, also GS Matencio. I'm a 49-year-old transgender female. Started doing drag in 1993 and have held several titles, including the Femme Magnifique International, Miss Gay Washington, Empress of Seattle, and a few other ones. And activism and HIV are a big part of my life. So excited to be here. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for being here. It means a lot. Waka Shame, hello. You are from Florida, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm Waka Shame. I'm from Orlando, Florida. I've been doing drag for 6 years now. I'm part of the House of Hell, and yeah, I reign down here on the Southern Peninsula.
Oh wow, the House of Hell. I love that. That's like Sagittarius season, right? No, maybe.
A little bit. I'm a rising Sagittarius.
Oh, oh, watch out. And what are your pronouns?
He, they, she, anything goes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then the beautiful, beautiful Alexa Manila. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, London Bradshaw. Thanks for inviting me and to be included in this conversation on World AIDS Day with these phenomenal folks. Again, I'm Alexa Manila. Mabuhay, everyone. I am coming to you from Duwamish land of the Coast Salish peoples, otherwise known as Seattle. I am also a drag queen, identifies genderqueer Filipinx, immigrant from the Philippines. Seattle has been my home for 20 plus years now. I've also held, like any stereotypical drag queen, lots of crowns and gowns, but my first one was Miss Gay Filipino. Where I love sharing this because I think it's just funny. I won every category except Miss Congeniality. I have then since become Miss Gay Seattle, Empress of Seattle, La Femme Magnifique Puget Sound, and so on. Outside of my drag world, I also work at Public Health Seattle and King County as a program manager. And I am also a consultant and clinician in private practice. A lot of my focus is on LGBTQ API, cultural competency, de-escalation, HIV education and prevention. And I also founded a local collective called Pride Asia, founded in 2012. Our mission is to celebrate, empower, and nurture the multicultural diversity of the LGBTQ communities through the Asian Pacific Islander lens. I also want to acknowledge one of our heroes, Geisha Star, who is also a founding member of Pride Asia, and I bow down to her. She is royalty to me. As a proud Filipinx, I look up to her very much. So I'm so honored to be in the same space as her, and I look forward to the conversation this evening. Thank you so much, London, for having us all together. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And all the way from Amphar, thank you, Alexa. All the way from Amphar, we have Dr. Rowena Johnston. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on this panel. Really looking forward to this conversation. I'm director of research at AMFAR. We are very busy trying to find a cure for HIV because I think it's really important that not only that we have effective ways to prevent HIV infection, but also to cure people, should they so wish, who are living with HIV. It's very complicated work. very gratifying work. Can't wait for this conversation.
Oop, give me 1 second, y'all. Hold on. Sorry. I think I fixed it. I fixed it. Cute. Okay. Sorry, y'all. I moved the screen and then I moved everything. So we have some questions. I want everybody, if you have any questions in the chat, we want to make sure that they are answered and people are comfortable for them. So if anyone has questions, I would ask maybe redeem a 50-point redemption to ask a question. But I'm sure that there's going to be enough conversation here today to talk about everything that you may have curiosity for. And if you would like to donate to AMFAR today, please do so. It is World AIDS Day. So if somebody wants to, and somebody who is a panelist wants to talk about World AIDS Day and what that means if someone doesn't know. Anybody? Roanna?
Okay, great. I'll jump in. To me, I think it's really an opportunity to take stock of the progress that's happened during the past year. Certainly in my line of work, looking at the scientific advances and what we've learned, but also to really kind of be aware of how far it is we have yet to go. To remind ourselves that HIV is with us, that it's, especially this last year or two, the other viral pandemic. People have been distracted a lot, of course, by COVID. But it's really an opportunity to remind ourselves and re-energize ourselves and remind the rest of the people in the world that HIV is still with us and there's a lot of work yet to do before we can end it.
Agreed. Thank you. So some of the questions that I have today are just general questions for people who may or may not know what HIV or AIDS is and the difference between the two of them. So my first question I wanted to ask y'all today, what could potentially be the difference between HIV and AIDS, and how has that affected you growing up? Anybody can answer that? Kylie?
Yeah, so I have like bullet points over here, so if I'm reading it, don't dock me for it. So HIV is kind of like the virus that attacks the immune system, but like AIDS is the term that is given to once it causes like severe damage to the immune system, if that's like an easy quick way to put it. So HIV is a term for the infection, and AIDS is the term given to after the fact, where HIV becomes to a point where it starts to affect the immune system, where you kind of have to protect yourself from other diseases you might get that might cause further damage to your body. I don't know if that's like a easy quick way to put it.
It's an easy quick way to put it. I would say that there's no, you have the correct answer, yes. Anybody else would like to speak on the education of what the difference is or how it has affected somebody growing up? Geisha Star?
Growing up and graduating from school in 1990, we didn't have a lot of the education. We didn't even have the internet back then, if you believe it or not. So something like this, and the way to express drag and entertainment and education at the same time was just not available. When I came out onto Seattle's LGBT scene in 93, when I turned 21, it was towards the end of the AIDS crisis. And I remember vividly that every week gay men predominantly were dying, and it was labeled the gay disease. And it was incredibly, and still is, very homophobic in terms of how people identify it. And back then it was predominantly also targeted towards African American minorities. There was a race and a scramble with places like Bailey Boucher House, which is the AIDS hospice in Madison Valley, Chicken Soup Brigade, which then joined forces with Northwest Harvest, and then now is Lifelong AIDS Alliance, which really helps deliver food, resources, counseling, and other services to people living with HIV and AIDS. Really to see the span of how much the disease has changed but not changed in the general public and perception is really hard and really sad to see. And even the last couple of years, to Dr. Rowena's statement about COVID, it really reminds us back to those conversations about disclosure, and STIs, and really looking at people's beliefs and understandings and boundaries.
Waka, do you have anything that you want to? Also, thank you, Geisha. Sorry about that. Waka, do you have anything that you'd like to add on, or any things you'd like
Yeah,
to?
yeah. Growing up, I really didn't know the difference because family members of mine that were homophobic, they only referred to it as AIDS. And when I was coming out as gay, it was told to me in that same manner of, oh, well, you're gonna get AIDS. So I really didn't get educated about HIV until I want to say my freshman year of high school for sex ed. Um, so yeah, so I spent a good, I would say, 3 or 4 years just thinking that like it was just a death sentence. You know what I mean? Which, as we all know, is not the case.
Yes, agreed, agreed. Thank you. Waka, no, sorry, Waka, Alexa Manila.
Yeah, sure. Because you have such a huge, following, I think it's really relevant that we continue to educate everyone. So HIV is the virus that causes AIDS, but they are two distinct things. AIDS is what a doctor or a provider or an ARNP or a physician's assistant might diagnose you with. But that's something that a clinician would diagnose you with. But HIV is the virus that causes AIDS. But you may have HIV, but you may not have AIDS. So that's the distinction. A lot of people conflate those two. So those are two very distinct things. And I look to Dr. Johnston to correct me if necessary. But I really love your question around how did it affect me as a child, and it's fascinating because so there's that uh, generational piece, but it's such an ongoing relationship that I would say I have with HIV/AIDS. As an immigrant from the Philippines, so in the '80s, I grew up in the Philippines. So yeah, sure, we had news outlets, we had magazines, and yeah, sure, I heard about Ryan White, but not in the way I understand it now, because I was a kid, right? And then there's a cultural piece too, because it just didn't impact the Philippines the way the United States was impacted by HIV, by GRID, right? They even named it in such a derogatory term, and it was politicized, right? So in U.S. society, it's such a different conversation, and so I just that was just an oversight on my part, and not because I didn't want to learn about it. It just wasn't part of the common conversation, and the rates of and I always say this: one is too many, and however low the numbers are in the Philippines, we're still impacted nonetheless. And of course, growing up, and I always was different. So this is now where the parallel comes in. You grow up knowing that you're a different person, right? Later on, you find out that you're just special, right? Whether that means you're gay, lesbian, genderqueer, transgender, or however, just being part of the LGBTQ community. And then you see stories about people inflicted and impacted by HIV/AIDS from the 80s, even to folks like Ryan White, right? And it wasn't really until Ryan White, as this young, and I'll say it, young white kid, that all of a sudden it became this okay thing now, right? But before that, it was the gay disease, it was the gay cancer, and we were vilified for it. And so, as a child, seeing that and becoming, a young adolescent, and that lingering story of how other people look at us as a community, that's damaging to one's self-esteem, to one's self view, right? And so that's definitely impacted me. And then, of course, and it becomes complex now that I'm like 40 plus years old now. And so, and I'm just happy that I was welcomed into the queer community in the Northwest, and I found confidence, I found my voice, and I recognize that visibility and voice are so powerful for us as a marginalized community. And so we've empowered ourselves to educate ourselves, to find intervention, to find a cure, right? Not just for the queer community or the gay community, but for everyone impacted by it, because we now know, and we've always known, that it impacts so many people, not just the gay community. But I think social stigma is one thing that really impacts us in such a horrible way. And now it's not just the gay community; it's sex workers, it's intravenous drug users that are impacted when we think about HIV and AIDS, right? But we recognize that anybody, HIV and AIDS does not discriminate, and we have to put that into the context and into conversation so that we address stigma. Thank you.
Thank you. My next question for you all. I know the chat is like, Alexa, damn, speak on it. Speak on it, Alexa Manila. I'm very, very again happy to have you all here. It means a lot. Um, my next question for you all is, what does undetectable mean? So if somebody is undetectable and living with HIV, what does that mean? So we can educate people who aren't aware of what undetectable means.
Undetectable means, so for the people that don't know, some people I know mentioned they don't know what U equals U means. So undetectable is undetectable equals untransmittable, meaning through sexual relations, you're not able to transmit that disease under a certain copies of HIV per millimeter of blood, which I believe is below 50. I could be wrong. There's different places that have a different amount for that, but like the general is 50, and so you're not able to transmit the HIV through sexual encounters, and I don't know if this is correct, but through needle sharing as well. I don't know how correct that is, but yeah, so undetectable equals untransmittable, which is U equals U for the people that don't know. And that's on period.
Geisha or Waka?
Yeah, no, second that. It means that you are someone living with HIV, but you go and you get tested, and you take a pill every day to make sure that you keep that count low, and that means that you're healthy and you can live long and prosper.
So I am HIV positive. I've been positive for over 20 years. And to Waka's point, I'm very lucky that I'm seen here with Dr. Peter Shallot, who's really at LGBT, one of the best physicians here in Seattle. And for me to be undetectable, there are days that I think about my status and there are days that I don't, because it has now become just such a part of my life that I like my transness, like my Filipinx, like my drag, like my career, like all the other parts of my life. I've normalized it to a point where I don't lead with it, but I'm very conscious about it, both in, from meeting new people to my community work that I do in fundraising. But it is very possible, especially if you take care of yourself and get the help you need, regardless if you have a regular healthcare provider or go to clinics, and really take that responsibility to educate yourself, especially now when you've got the internet and your smartphones and resources, to really get the help you need, both physically and medically and emotionally and spiritually. But to me, I think undetectable, to Kylie's point and Waka's point, is really just finding a way to live and navigate it. I'm on Dovato, which is a once a day pill that I take. I have just signed up with this pharmacy called Alto, where it gets delivered to me. And I work, and it's great with the state. I have really great benefits. So it is possible, and it's nothing to be afraid of. And I think that is, and at least on the emotional way I can answer this question, the most important thing that I hope you guys get out of this conversation.
And I appreciate you bringing that up, and it means a lot that you're here today talking about your life, because I want to let y'all know that like Geisha Star is the legend icon in Seattle, and when she walks in a room, you just like get the hell out of the way. You move, you say hi. She's a huge inspiration for many many drag artists here, myself included. I just really look up to you, and again, it's really great to have this panel. It's great to have you here. So thank you for speaking on that. I really appreciate that. Alexa.
Yeah, I'll wear my HIV case manager hat, and I want to come from an angle of education. So it doesn't magically happen. And by the way, I'm so happy Kylie mentioned U equals U. It's one of the projects and things that we promote through Public Health Seattle and King County, and it's truly to educate the public that being undetectable equals being untransmittable. But the way that happens is you do have to be on antiretroviral therapy or ART, right? And that could mean like the one medication that GS mentioned, or it could be Truvada or any other thing. So obviously you would have to have medical care, right? So hopefully we want to make sure that you do have that, you have access to care. And thankfully, we have ACA and other resources for that. So close to what Kylie was mentioning, and it does vary. In a provider, a medical provider has to determine that your viral count needs to be, it's anywhere from 200 to 400. However, again, a medical provider needs to determine that because it is varied from person to person, from patient to patient. But you are determined undetectable 6 months after your last test where you were deemed undetectable. So there is that timeline. And truly the key here is that taking your medication as prescribed. And there has been numerous, and there's three major research studies that occurred, and it does prove that being undetectable equals being untransmittable, whether that's through IDU or a sexual intercourse, any of those activities that are deemed high risk behaviors. And I think that's such a powerful message because it sends out the message that we can control our direction, our life goals, and that we can live fully if we take care of ourselves and if we allow other people to be part of that team. And I've mentioned this before, and it's such an old adage, but it takes a village, and that also includes our own healthcare. And so it's such a powerful thing. And even though there are m- I'm anecdotally, there are younger people that are acquiring HIV, but they're also able to take care of themselves. People are living longer, and I'm so glad that people get to be with us longer and share life's wealth, whether that means a connection to someone or family relationships, whether that's chosen and whatnot. But yeah, so again, yeah, I'm just so happy that I hear Kylie, who's from San Diego, talking about the U equals U program. And I'm just so happy that that's happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Rowena, is there anything that you would like to add on? Excuse me, Dr. Johnson. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Yeah, I was thinking through, when you go to the doctor and, certainly have to be, you have to go get tested first. First of all, you have to know your HIV status. Please do that. Then if you are HIV positive, find some kind of healthcare provider who is going to be able to prescribe antiretroviral therapy. And for most people, I think probably these, maybe from earlier on it might not have been so true, but these days you're likely to be able to reach an undetectable level. But this is kind of where a little bit I want to bring in where this intersection is with cure research, because undetectable does not mean that the HIV is no longer there. And that's where that intersection is with, what it really means is that the test that the doctor is using in the office isn't sensitive enough to see that last tiny little bit of HIV that's still left. And that's that last tiny little bit of HIV that's still left that we're doing the research on to see if we can find a cure so that, if the virus is gone altogether, then you don't even have to take antiretroviral therapy anymore. And the virus won't come back. So that's kind of the edge. I just wanted to bring that in. That's that edge of where we're talking about. Antiretroviral therapy is great. It's a huge advance. It's one of the greatest things that any medical science has done. When you think about essentially the certain death sentence that HIV was in the early 80s to where we are now, where you really can take antiretroviral therapy every day and live a long, healthy, full, satisfying life. But you're still taking that medication every day. And we would love to get to a point where we can liberate people from needing to do that. And, let's just wave bye-bye to HIV.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Can I add here, when we talk about access to testing, one thing that is always great is studies. There's all kinds of promotions, especially if you are trans or gay or certain age demographic. So if you are maybe not able to go to a regular family practitioner or healthcare provider, or you need to do, or you're starting to move to your own city or come out, going somewhere else, really looking for those studies. You get paid for it on top of getting regular. If you get absorbed into the study and entered, then you get that healthcare and someone really watching your stats and really taking care of you. And some studies can be short term, 6 months, and some can be up to 2 years. And I think that that's another way to access that care that may be intimidating if you were going to your family doctor or didn't have any options available to you.
Yes, agreed. Um, there is a couple questions in our chat. I will answer those in just 1 second, but I did want to take a moment to acknowledge why we are here discussing the education and this panel. We have raised $100 so far, which means we are at $600 for our goal of 1,000. So exclamation point donate. Thank you, chat, for contributing to that $100 here today. Please continue to donate for AmFAR. If you do exclamation point donate, you can do that as well. We have 3 questions from the chat, but a question I wanted to ask you, which we have talked about earlier, was if someone isn't educated on HIV/AIDS, what is a piece of advice you can give to them? So if there was like an on the street conversation, what is a quick piece of advice that you could give to someone who may be uneducated or would like to, or that something that could help them end the stigma of thinking that it's the gay disease, the gay cancer, things like that?
I would say I had a conversation earlier. I had a phone call with one of my friends that works for an HIV clinic in San Jose. And I was asking him these questions just to get some more input on it. And one of the big things is don't think of it as a death sentence anymore, because it's not. And that's one of the biggest like misconceptions about HIV nowadays. So someone that's like uneducated about HIV or AIDS is just to know that it's not a death sentence anymore. That not to be afraid of the virus itself. Be afraid of, like, what's the scariest part about it is the stigma behind it right now. Honestly, that's the scariest part about HIV is the stigma, not so much the HIV, because there's so much things you could take, like Biktarvy, there's like all kinds of other medicines you could take, not to be afraid of it. And another thing I want to point out is, even if you're undocumented, even if you have no insurance, if you have nothing, there are resources out there to get you tested, to get you like medicine, anything you need to keep you in there. There's the Ryan White program to keep like just to keep the check-ins, medicines and stuff like that, to know that no matter where you are in life, don't be afraid of HIV. There are resources for you out there, and it's not a death sentence. It's not. I think that would be the biggest thing for me to tell somebody.
Thank you, Kylie. Keisha?
I would say, you're going to go through a lot of different emotions and a lot of different stages with your relationship to the disease. Regardless if it's going to be with seeing somebody die from it or live through it, or, unfortunately, if you were to get it yourself. I think that as you go through the shock, the grieving, the what now, you're going to have to eventually climb to the empowerment of, okay, I've got it. So how am I going to live with it? What do I have as resources? And that's going to start with your family or your chosen family, for many of us in the LGBT community. And then a lot of it is just really, you would be surprised. And even if it's one of those, I'm asking for a friend things, until you feel comfortable and confident to say it or to disclose, there are so many resources that, like Kylie and Alexa and Waka and Rowena and London have shared. It's as simple as just Googling, and really looking at where the information is coming from, especially if it's accredited, like from the CDC or your public health or, anything along those lines. So you feel confident that you're getting the right information. But I would definitely say you have to empower yourself. I don't know, to be honest with you, if I would have lived 20 years if I had not went on different types of medications and been taking care of myself and allowed myself, even when I didn't have any idea what I was going to do with it. But I think getting that help right away at the beginning of getting the diagnosis is probably what's helped me live this long.
Thank you. Also, Araya Mess in the chat says, as someone who lives with HIV, I just want to say thank you for having this conversation. And thank you to Geisha for sharing your story. It's great to be able to hear the stories of other people who have been through the same thing. So I just wanted to point that out for you, Geisha Star. Waka, anything you'd like to let us know?
Yeah. The question was a bit of advice you would impart to somebody
Yes.
regarding HIV. So my biggest concern is typically having conversations with people, having open conversations with your sexual partners regarding HIV, STDs, STIs, all of the things of that nature. Keeping a general comfortability with asking somebody, when's the last time you've been tested? And I know this is where it gets kind of awkward for a lot of people because I find that people will be in the middle of sexy talk or they'll be, getting close to having an encounter, and it feels almost awkward to stop and be like, wait a second. But there's something sexy about that too. And there's a lot of power in normalizing it so that we can all end the stigma and stop the spread, by just simply saying, hey, when's the last time you've been tested? And then being confident enough with yourself and taking care of your body enough to say, okay, well, if this person hasn't been tested recently, they don't know their status, then I need to be more careful. And I need to use more, use condoms, or maybe just not even have sex with that person. Because I know even with me growing up and, you know, becoming the sexual being that I became, it was like I'd go to lengths to please people, or I would be coerced into something, and I didn't know enough, and people didn't have enough conversations with me like that for me to even be aware that that was something that could happen. You know what I mean? And I'm also somebody living with HIV, so that was kind of the road that I went down, was just being too open, too susceptible, and careless to, things. It's like I know these things, but you get so caught up in the heat of it that you don't think about it. Um, but then growing up into the adult I am now, like I said, it's just so much hotter and like so much more like grounding to be able to talk about those things and feel comfortable. So that's what I would say to somebody in the street. I would say to feel comfortable having the conversations, and also feel comfortable having conversations about places you can go and get tested if the person hasn't been tested already, because that's how you learn things locally from other people, is by sharing locations, sharing contacts, letting people know what their resources are around you, because sometimes people don't know. And even people that I'm friends with in different cities around Florida, they don't have the same resources. So they would have to make a commute out here to get those resources that they need, whether to be tested or, diagnosed, or whatever it is that they need, get the treatment that they need. And I have Ryan White here. I'm accessible to that, but there's a lot of people that they don't know where they can access that. So we have to be able to talk about it.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate that, and also again, thank you for sharing. Your story as well growing up. Is there just like an off-topic question that we didn't have during our pre email to this panel? Is there things that you should not say when asking somebody about, hey, have you been tested? When's the last time you've been tested? Like, are there any like things that aren't appropriate that maybe people want to look out for? Just asking the group as a whole. Like, I feel like
Yes.
using the word like "Are you clean?" or the statement "Are you clean?" is something that you
Oh,
don't
yeah,
want to
yeah.
say. So, are there any other things that you want to give out to advice, or if someone wants to have that conversation? Like saying "Are you clean?" is not something you should say. So,
No, and you see a lot of that, to be honest with you, on Grinder. That is, uh, as COVID is a cock blocker from meeting people in public or at bars, and a little bit more naturally, and everyone has been turning more onto their phones and their apps. Um, it is very personal when you have to disclose. Some people are very open about it, where they'll put their status in their ad or their personal, which is great. And I think that definitely helps empower and normalize the disease to everyone, to know that these people want intimacy, these people want sex, these people have this, and they have the right to still have those things, those connections. I think that for me, when I've swiped, and it's more apparent with most of the men I meet, as I identify as straight, to a lot of bi or closeted straight men, or men that, the way that people look at the trans community sexually, it's not as normalized. And so there's a lot of men that I'll meet, and when I tell them my status, I'll get unmatched right in the middle of our conversation. I will get cussed out. I will be a, a god's hellion to these men. Um, but then I've met some really cool guys that will be like, okay, that's fine, I'm on prep. Or I've met some guys that want or understand it because they've been around it, and are not afraid. But we've had to, like, have chats to really build up that trust, and actually disclosing your status and being not upfront but open with it actually has won me points with guys being like, wow, that's really cool for you to be honest and open about it. It's not going to be for everybody, and it's never going to be the same. And it's not easy. It is not easy, but it is possible to know that you are not only taking care of another person, but you're taking care of yourself. Because I'm getting to the point in my life where obviously he's going to have to live with my transness, and now he's going to have to live with my status. And he has to be okay with that. And we have to figure out that whenever I meet him.
Yeah.
So, those are just some things I would say if you want to meet somebody new or have met somebody new and you have to disclose.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you both. I definitely agree of asking how, like, the appropriateness of, like, asking to get tested and how sexy that is. Like, because one of, being polyamorous, one of the partners I am seeing is HIV positive and the other one is not. So I have to make sure that everybody in the situation of what is going on knows about everything, and we're doing the right things to make sure that we all stay safe. So asking about when's the last time you got tested, from someone who is, I do not think it's not appropriate to ask. I think that people get really confuzzled about it and get really, like, bent out of shape, or like, well, how dare you ask me? It's like, well, I mean, it's important, and if I just think it's important. So yes, please, everybody in the chat, please just
I mean, if
ask.
you think about it, London and the panel, within a year, we've had to talk about this, going out of bubbles, COVID. Are you vaccinated? When was the last time you've been with someone or hung out? And within 1 year, cultural shift has made it normal to know who you can be comfortable with hanging out. And while it's apples and oranges with COVID and HIV, but if you can think that that's how fast it's become culturally relevant and normal to talk about statuses and all those types of things, it is possible. And even sex is more intimate than maybe dining in the same restaurant or being on the airplane together. So that's something to think about.
So this is a great conversation. I'm happy that we're having it. Alexa, Dr. Johnson, is there anything that you wanted to add in the question of if there was a piece of advice that you could give to someone on the street in that sense? Like a quick piece of advice if you're walking down the street and you're like, hey, you, here's my advice. That was a very London Bradshaw. Sorry.
It's so not Seattle, right? For us to just say hi to strangers.
Oh my God,
okay?
Seattle is the most passive aggressive city in the world. Like you can literally
What
be like,
is
hey,
New
you
York?
could be like, hey, what's
Even more
going
than New
on?
York.
Oh,
Yeah, I live in New York.
Okay, so let's
And
do a
by the way-
comparison. Let's do a comparison. You start, Dr. Johnston.
I'm sorry. By the way, I want to apologize for leaving. I had a very peculiar experience just now. My apartment just got stampeded by 6 or 7 policemen because somebody or other called the police and said that somebody had been stabbed in my apartment. So I'm a little bit. I have no idea what was happening there.
are you okay? Are
what-
you safe?
Oh, I am. Yes. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you for asking. Yes, they took the crews around the place to make sure no bad guys were here. My advice, I think, taking elements from what people here have said, I think that, there's this intersection where HIV, I think, has the capacity to make people feel bad about themselves, but it's actually exactly the circumstance under which you need to love yourself so that you can take care of yourself and understand that your own safety and your own health are the centrally important aspects, right? You have to take care of yourself so that your whole life can, come together and you can take care of others the way you want to. But, it really has to start with understanding that you are worthy of health and happiness and longevity, and you do deserve to see the people who are going to help you be that, or friends or a community, a group of,
Mm-hmm.
trusted people. You deserve that, and you should get it because we all deserve that.
Yeah. Uh, I'm thinking of three things I would want to highlight. One, a reminder that HIV and AIDS affects and impacts all of us, regardless of our status, regardless of where we're coming from, regardless of what our backgrounds are. We are universally impacted by it, but just by the nature of our human connection. Second, I think a reminder of that we are not alone. You are not alone. We've got a community out there. Yeah, sure, you could argue certain communities are better off than the others than others. Metropolitan areas tend to have more resources. Uh, but to the other panelists' point, we've got technology at our fingertips, right? And again, that human connection is so powerful. And then lastly, to look at it from a holistic perspective, not to only see HIV and AIDS as a medical condition, but it's something that we need to take care of and focus on our spirituality, on our physicality, our hearts, our minds, all of that. We're all that's all impacted, even the social aspect of it. So just being reminded of that. And then a PS. I know that there's already three things. uh, that it's really about. I want to echo what Kylie had mentioned earlier. It really is about the social stigma, and we've really come a long way. And although it's not quite perfect, if we were to look back, we've come a long way. The conversations in person, even online, grinder. We really need to start embracing and avoiding shaming each other for that, because that's also rooted in social stigma. And lastly, just to think of it and accept it the way we accept cancer or any other medical condition, because when we don't, the root of it comes back to social stigma, because we associate certain diseases to certain fellow human beings. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just before we get to our other questions in our other questions that we had, Passions Planet, a member in our chat, says, "Do you feel like representation in the media regarding?" Excuse me, hold on. I have bad words blocked on my. Do you feel like representation in media regarding AIDS is heading down the right direction within the last few decades with shows like It's a Sin could more be done? I'll read it again. Do you feel like representation in media regarding AIDS is heading in the right direction within the last few decades with shows like It's a Sin could more be done? I'll post it in the actual chat on Twitch.
Yeah, if I could answer it, I think yes. I mean, I can't recall any like TV shows or anything, just because I just don't really watch that much TV. But when I do, I see like just YouTube videos. I see a lot of like ads for like Biktarvy and like other preps and stuff like that. So there's definitely a lot more education that's popping up in the media that you would never have seen like even like 3 5 years ago. Like you would never have seen that. So I think just there is kind of showing that yes, we're progressing. I wish I could recall a show that's talked about it, but yeah, I think there's definitely the media's slowly getting there. It's not there yet, but it's starting to open up a little more.
Yeah. I feel like maybe Pose talks about it in some sort of way.
Oh
That's like one
yes,
of
oh
the
my god, I
biggest
didn't know
shows. Before we continue the question, I just want to let everybody know. Oh my God. So I was gonna say that we did raise money. We raised up to $700, but then someone just donated, so we are now at $946 in the last like 5 seconds. So thank you for all the donations. If y'all just want to cap it at $50 donations, we've reached our goal for tonight. which was very important for World AIDS Day, and I appreciate everybody donating.
Yeah.
Before this panel's over, if y'all can do it, if not, I will do it myself. But Geisha, Waka, Alexa, Dr. Johnson, is there anything in the media that representation within?
Yeah, I was gonna mention Pose if I could, because as somebody young and that didn't get a lot of that information growing up, watching Pose, I felt very educated on gay culture for the past like few decades and what everybody had to deal with, the things that I hear people talk about, but I wasn't there to experience. So to see it enacted on the screen for me, it allowed me to feel those things and to really appreciate the resources that I have nowadays, because it wasn't always like that. I mean, I knew one person that was a friend of a friend, and he was older and he had been battling it for 2+ decades, and it was like a medical anomaly that he had survived it. So I had the one story, but it was really the pandemic of it all that really sunk in from watching that show.
Does anybody
Probably the
go ahead? Sorry.
I'm probably the one person who hasn't seen Pose, but you did bring up It's a Sin, and then also Angels in America, which is kind of from a little bit further ago. And I was sitting here thinking that those are depictions of kind of the bad old days, so to speak.
Mhm.
And I'm not as aware of, TV shows really, what we were talking about before, that what we'd really like people to understand is that living with HIV is not a disaster and a tragedy, and it's not,
Mhm.
like maybe if there were shows where it was just a simple, just part of the storyline where people could see that this is living with HIV in the United States maybe than people imagine. That people walking down the street probably know people with HIV, they just don't know that they do. It really is very mainstream, and maybe if that were shown more in movies or TV shows, then more people would understand that that's the case.
It does. I think it needs to have something like a global reach, like the revival of Sex and the City. If one of the characters on that show, um, for her new show, and just like that, had a character that was living with HIV, and maybe it wasn't, or even if one of the gay characters on the show, just, it was a storyline. There's obviously the episode of coming out or disclosure, and then it's just there. I think that is the next level, the mainstream of really being on that type of a stage and access into people's homes, is really what's going to help continue, similar to the trans community, break down those barriers of what people have as perceptions against HIV and AIDS.
Mhm. I, I agreed with all of those comments. I would also say with popular media or the arts, whether it's on stage or on film, I would say definitely kudos that we are getting visibility, that it's in mainstream culture. However, my critique of it is that it's we're preaching to the choir, right? Yes, I recognize not all LGBTQ people are fully educated on it. I get that portion of it. And then that's to piggyback what Geisha was saying, to actually infiltrate true mainstream popular media. Use that as a catalyst to have those conversations. However, when they have done it in rare occasions, my critique of it is another one is that it becomes a stereotype, right? And often, and I'll dig a little deeper, oftentimes these LGBTQ characters, in this context, say afflicted with HIV, are often played by cisgender, white, non LGBTQ people. Yes, you could argue that's their job, they're actors, but what happens is then they take up space for LGBTQ actors to become LGBTQ characters. That's another show. And then, I love that question, and I want to push it even further. And I go in the direction of not just mainstream in those arenas, make it a legislation issue, meaning legislate it so it becomes part of the educational system. Let's just start with high school. That's age appropriate. Use sex ed that's LGBTQ appropriate and respectful. Go all the way to college, incorporate that. And in Washington State, at least for the University of Washington, we've been doing LGBTQ talks. We're now incorporating LGBTQ, particularly trans health issues in the schools of medicine, school of nursing, school of dentistry, school of social work, where I came from. So we're really having these conversations. However, they're rare and few. And I recognize that in the LGBTQ civil rights movement, we're still pretty young. We're just now introducing, we're just now recognizing vocabulary for it. We're really not in the textbooks. And if we are, we were, we were taken out. Two, we were stereotypes, we were caricatures, right? And this is a great opportunity to align ourselves with what I'm talking about with history in the educational system, where we were just systematically and historically removed. Indigenous history in this country, you know, true Black history has been removed. A lot of these histories are so critical in the development of this society, but they were taken out, right? So it becomes this issue around race. And if you feel that it's not that's a different topic, oh, you'll be surprised. It's all connected. You may not see it because you see it as a parallel, but in most instances, it's an intersection. We have to deal with all these intersectionalities of isms, not just social stigma with the way we look at HIV and AIDS, but also these other issues: ageism, sexism, transphobia, homophobia, internalized issues, etc. But yeah, I love that question, but I would even push it even further. And that's just yet another example. And I know there's more that we could really just change and make that so that it impacts positively all of society. Thank you.
Thank you. It looks like we have about 5 minutes left. I have, I think, two questions left that I really want answered. So my apologies. And I just want to shout out to everybody. Some of us do not live in the Pacific Northwest, which is what the time frame was for this event. So shout out to Dr. Johnson and Waka for being up in the middle of the night, midnight past, for being here. My last question for the group, and then I have my last two questions for the group are sorry. How does HIV/AIDS affect everyone globally, and how can we help? I think we kind of answered that, but if we want to bring it around again, we can. But if we've already answered that, we don't have to.
I think a quick like how can we help globally is literally this. Like what we're doing right now is helping globally because it's able to be broadcasted around the world. So doing this and educating people around the world what we're talking about right now, and topics that are not necessarily discussed in certain counties, states, countries, whatever. And so doing exactly this, especially online in like the platforms we have right now, thank to, Stream Queens for doing this. It's amazing that we have this platform to help, spread the education globally. And this, we're doing exactly that here. And I feel like this is exactly how we can help.
I'll take one more person for this specific question, and then I have one more question before we head out. All right, so my last question will be, it's kind of a question, and I'm gonna kind of throw it at, not throw it, but I'm gonna kind of throw it at Dr. Johnston. It is, what do you think of cure research, and what do you think a cure would personally mean to our peers? What do you think of cure research, and what do you think of a cure would mean personally and to our peers? And this can go for anybody, but I'll start off with Dr. Johnston.
Yeah, I think, cure research has really come into its own. It wasn't that long ago that people thought it was just impossible to cure HIV because it's a virus, and there was no precedent for curing any virus. So, people thought it was impossible, and then lo and behold, the Berlin patient comes along, and he went through a very complex regimen. It's not the kind of thing that, we can do very often for very many people. But he was cured, and, suddenly people's eyes were opened that, wow, maybe we should take this possibility seriously, that this is a worthwhile pursuit. So, the field has really grown. There are a lot of people working on HIV cure research right now because I think there's a recognition of, the two ends of that spectrum. to bring it full circle, if we're going to end AIDS, we need to prevent new infections, and we need to be able to cure people who are living with HIV now. So, from conversations that I have, I think, for as many people as are living with HIV, that's probably how many different meanings there are for what a cure would be, right? I mean, every person, if they want to be cured, has their own reasons for doing it. But I think, a big theme that we've been talking about here is stigma. And I do think that's kind of the last frontier, the final frontier in HIV care, right? Not just antiretroviral therapy or having your blood drawn and all that. Part of care really is about your psychological well-being too. And I think stigma is very damaging. And I think the cure go a long way towards being able to heal any stigma, internalized and external, that people feel who are living with HIV. So, I hope research can help bring all of these wonderful things to people living with HIV.
Thank you. I have time for one more person to answer that question, and if not, we will end our panel for today.
I'd love to, London.
Yeah.
I would expand research outside of just cure research, but also things like behavioral research that are related to HIV. For example, I'm with the National HIV Behavioral Surveillance, which is a 23 city study out of CDC, and Seattle is one of the sites. And I mention that because those types of researches, and often they're incentivized, to promote folks to be included in it, partake in it. And often these are anonymous, they're incentivized, be part of the cure. Even the behavioral studies will lead up and can influence the cure. And it's so beautiful that we've had the Berlin patient. We had a second Berlin patient, Timothy Ray Brown. He named himself. Got to meet him. Wonderful guy. He lived in Palm Springs. He unfortunately passed, not because of AIDS, because he was in fact cured of it. He passed away from other conditions. But now we've got a third person, the London patient. I can't believe this. In my lifetime, in our lifetime, right? We've got 3 people that have been documented to have been cured. It can happen. It is a possibility, and we are so close to it. If we can land ourselves on the moon, and now we can fly around the moon, I mean, the Earth, I think we can do this. I believe in the human spirit, and it is possible. I'd love to be able to see that happen while I'm alive and while we are all still alive in this panel. Kylie being, I think Kylie Walker, the youngest people in here. I hope that you get to see it, even if I don't get to see it. That is my wish for all of us. So yeah, and again, gratitude to London. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you. I want to let you all know that this is probably the most important thing that I've done this year, was having this panel for Stream Queens Con. It's been like really important to me to have you all here. I'm not gonna lie, it was a struggle to want to have to find people to want to speak on this panel, because it's such an important thing that we don't want to always disclose or put ourselves out there for. But you 5 people showed up today and made this happen for World AIDS Day. And on top of that, we did finish our goal. We met our goal today at $1,001. So thank you everybody who donated for that. We really, 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 really appreciate you all. And thank you again for having this panel. Our closing comments, where can we find you? If you're all a drag artist and you want to promote something really quickly, please do. If you stream, let us know. We'll start with Kylie.
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at I am Kylie Gabor. You can find me on TikTok at Kylie Gabor, Twitter, I am Kylie Gabor. And you can catch me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Kylie Gabor. I'm an Apex stream main. So if you like Apex Legends and other first-person shooter games, feel free to check me out. My streams are always chaotic and, yeah, they're fun. Come see me.
Miss Geisha Star.
I'm pretty simple, just on Instagram and on Facebook, GAYSHASTARR. Thank you.
Yes. Walk of Shame, where can we find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all as The Walk of Shame. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for having me. This has been very enriching.
Thank you, thank you. Alexa Manila, where can we find you?
Yeah, you can find me on all social media outlets at Alexa Manila, AlexaManila, or on my website at alexamanila.com. And shout out to PBS. I'm in a PBS documentary special directed by Gina Rosero. Just Google it, PBS special Caretakers, Alexa Manila, if you want to watch it. Please do. Thank you.
Dr. Johnson, where can we find you where can we
I
find
would
you?
encourage people to go to ampar.org. Really very grateful to people who have given to Ampar during our program here. And if you want to learn more about where that money's going and all the different work we have going on, then ampar.org is the place for you to go.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you. Can I say one last thing really, really quick?
5 seconds.
Okay, 5 seconds. If you need any resources for HIV, if you're positive or you need any resources, hit me up. If you're in the San Diego area or the San Jose area, I have resources, the connections for you. That's all.
Thank you, thank you. And I am Lennon Bradshaw. Again, if you like me, I'm Lennon Bradshaw. If you don't like me, I'm Lennon Bradshaw. You can find me at Twitch playing Fortnite, Dead by Daylight, and just being my crazy, chaotic Sagittarius self. I will see you all later. Thank you, everybody, for having us, and we'll see you all later. Good night.
Good night.